Yes, guys, what is going on? Welcome back to another episode of the Adapt Performance Podcast. In today's episode, I am joined by Ben Woolliss. So if you haven't heard of Ben Woolliss and you haven't listened to the previous episodes, go and check those out because he is on, testing me now, what episode? Not sure, go find it. Scroll down, you'll find them. They were some really good chats and today is exactly the same. So some of the topics we're going to get into, okay, we're going to be covering social media. So this was a cool one, and I think from my standpoint, me being in this situation with Adapt where it is a full-time job and things are going well and I get to work with athletes around the world, ultimately is down to social media. Same thing with Ben, his business built online because of social media. So we get into that. We get into some business strategies and why we're here, why we do the certain things that we do. We also get into a little bit of the philosophy around fighting, around learning and failing, and what are the positive benefits to that from a lifestyle standpoint, but we get into the actual S&C specifics and performance benefits as well. And then we do get into a little bit of, I'm going to call it lifestyle hack. I can't really think of a better term. But this was a really nice episode to record. It was just a nice chat. It was just easygoing, and I think you'll get a lot from it. We definitely cover performance bits. We cover some philosophy bits, just generally really nice, lighthearted. All right. So if you enjoy the episode, let us know, let me know, let Ben know, give it a share on social media, do all that good stuff because it helps the podcast continue to grow. All right, cool. Without further ado, this is me and Ben. Is this, when you're ready to do it, is this part of your daily non-negotiables? The same as you post once a week, once a day on Instagram. Okay, your daily non-negotiable is Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. If you're doing all the other stuff anyway,
it has to be really.
You've done all the work. That's it, isn't it?
Yeah. It don't make any sense. I think it's the thing that I reckon the dopamine thing plays a role because you post it to Instagram where you've got a big following and it gets a good reaction. You're like, oh, that's sick. You put it onto TikTok, put it onto TikTok and it gets 1,000 views. You're like, but you're in the same position that you was 2 years ago on Instagram, and eventually it is going to get to those points. And the same thing with Facebook. I've had some go relatively viral on Facebook, but it's super rare. Whereas Instagram is 1 in 5 will do real well, whereas TikTok is
I thought
1
that was
in
a good
20.
one.
So, but at the end of it, it was I
thought TikTok was
for mine. This is it depends on what you class as well and viral, doesn't it? My thing is if it goes over 100,000 or something, I'm like, oh, that was worth doing. But what nonsense is that? Do you know what I mean? But then you look at big time creators and they'll post things and it'll have 4,000 views, and these are people that have 900,000 followers.
Yeah, it's nice to see though. I think in that way, it makes you realise that the social media game fucks everyone over at some point, but also gives everyone opportunities at some point if you keep playing the game.
Yeah. How are you finding it? You still growing yours in that because you've still been.
I'm one a day. One on Jordan Webster Coach. I am one post a day, and that's been for 3 years. Don't get me wrong. There'll be the odd day when I don't, but I definitely make up for it by doing 2 on another day. So I think post for post, I'm definitely there. I'm less consistent with Adapt, which is something that is better. It's definitely progressing, but that's the thing. Maybe I'll just go down a daily non-negotiable of post. I need to sit down when I'm creative and come up with a carousel post and actually just getting information onto there. I still really enjoy it. I do enjoy social media. I get the odd time or the odd period in a month or whatever when I'm like, fuck this. This is taking effort. But that's no different from going to the gym. You still have days when you're like, fucking don't want to do that. But the reality is, I think now, if I look at Adapt, it's my full-time job. And I've managed pretty much to build a full-time job from posting once a day for 3 years. Obviously, the skill set and everything, the knowledge wasn't built in that 3 years, but it takes a little bit of time, but I'm super happy with it.
social presence and stuff has been built in that time. And if you was to think of that in terms of actually turning up to a 9 to 5, and say you applied for a 9 to 5 job, and they went, okay, we need you to do one social media post and then you can go home.
Mm.
You'd be like, what? What are you talking about? Bang.
Yeah.
And you're gone in 5 minutes. Like, so when you put it into like terms of an actual job, that's what I mean where like sometimes I know I need to sit down and make like 50 pieces. Because if you went into a position and you was, like I say, a 9 to 5 position, and they went, we need you to make 50 pieces of content today, that's your whole job from start of the morning till the end, and you probably get through it all. Maybe you make 30, 40. But think how many pieces. That's like one day is now a full month, just because you zone in a little bit more, rather than be like, I'll get one done, and then I'll have a little scroll, and then I'll piss around, and like, do you know what I mean? Like, there's so much time, for me anyway, personally, like, that I just know needs to be so much more directed and focused into what I'm actually doing. And the thing that I'll get back is going to be so much. But I feel like I set limits for that, because I'll do the same thing where I say, I've just got to get one out. And it's like, okay, you've made one post. Fucking hell. Well, you don't.
It is mad, mate, because it's sometimes,
do you know what I mean?
Putting out some social media bits, it might take you, when you start to when you finish, it might take you 4 hours. But it's not because you're grafted and your balls deep for 4 hours. It's because you've gone and made a brew. You've then bloody rearranged your bookshelf. You've pissed around with your bonsai tree. Like, is that stuff?
Yeah.
For what?
You drove to Starbucks.
For what?
Yeah, you drove to Starbucks to get a coffee when you had coffee at home, just so you could be in a different environment. When you literally, if you just sat down, if someone put a gun to your head and was like, make a great post in 10 minutes, go. Like shit. And you'd get it done. But we don't put a gun to our head. We just mosey round, and I make a cuppa before I sit down and get
I think, that's all it is.
Practicality.
I'm getting better. So I've got like a little notes page in my phone. So when I think of an idea or I think of a topic, jot it down straight away. You know, so if I'm like laid in bed and I'm thinking through stuff, you let your mind go wherever. And I think, I'm going to speak about jaw strength, okay, and the effect it has on grip. Okay, boom, write it down. Don't matter if if I'm just about to fall asleep, write it down because you'll forget. And then, when it comes time to write a bit of content, if you're doing that type of thing, or you need to record a video, you've just got ideas there. That's something that I've got to get a lot better at. Yeah. But I think, it's one of those. I do think it's a skill. Like, I genuinely do feel like it's a skill. The same as a writer writing a book or whatever. The social media stuff is, for right or wrong, we look at pages that you might think, I don't really like their style. Don't matter if you like it or not. You're one person. The metrics for good or bad have shown that people want to see that stuff. And we get it in the S&C world, where you get the really shit exercises that are just full of novelty and new stuff. And you're like, that doesn't really have any real world application. Doesn't matter, because 900,000 people want to see that new exercise on a Bosu ball. It's probably more human beings you need to be pissed off at, rather than that guy who's now making a living from it.
Or even so, not necessarily, like, if there's a large audience attracted to something, then there comes a point where maybe you don't have to put out things. If you're looking from a growth point of view, then it's like, if you was to sell a piece of clothing, you can't just do everything that you like, because there's going to be, to appeal to everybody else, people might not like white t-shirts, but I love white t-shirts. So I'm only going to sell white t-shirts. Now I've limited it to myself so much, whereas opposed to if I just released a blue one, because I know the general population really enjoy blue, the sales are going to increase, and like the attention of it will build. Instead of me just being like constrained to my own beliefs and being like, this is it, it's white until I die, and fucking,
for sure,
and then that's it. But yeah, the same thing with social media. If you see, like, say you don't like short form content, and you're like, no, I only enjoy long form content. But guess what? You have to do some things that you don't enjoy, and that's the reality if you want to grow things. So you have to expand into different avenues. You can still do your long format and do the things that you enjoy, but sometimes you're just going to have to do the stuff that you don't enjoy.
And the beauty of the long form stuff, to be honest with you, is what is long form? It's just a collection of short form shit. You know, take this podcast. I'm going to crop this up into bloody 7 different bits. Now you've got your short form. You know, I think it's being able to recycle those different bits as well, which is pretty cool. You know, and we spoke about this before. How many times we've probably reused videos or reused ideas, reused topics. We all have a short memory. You know, for our own stuff, we might be looking back and think, "Wow, it's the 5th time I've posted that," and it's like, well, nobody cares. You're one person that they're going to see over the, I don't know, I'd love to see how many posts people, like an average person, actually looks at in a day. If we're thinking Instagram, well, it's going to be tons, you know. So what are you? Probably 0.001% of their person's Instagram viewing. Get it out.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like that comes from a very, maybe not intentionally, but comes from a very egotistic place. If you think, I've posted it once, I can't do it again, as if everybody's seen it and wrote down that Jordan Webster posted about shoulder strength on the 4th of February, and
what
now
a sellout.
Nobody gives a fuck. One, they don't care, or 2, they've forgotten. Like they said before, where you could scroll through, and as you're just going, you could speak to somebody and go, "What did you just look at?"
You asked me the other day, didn't you?
Like,
you said to me, what colour underwear are you wearing, mate? And I was like,
yeah. What colour underwear you got on? So that was something I was watching, and I was watching a video or a podcast, and someone said it. They said, if you're worried about what people are thinking, if you're thinking that they're bothered about you, tell me what colour underwear you got on. And nobody in the room could answer it. So that's something that you do every single day that you've got on right now, but you can't even remember that. And you think that somebody's going to be bothered about a 10-second video you posted 4 months ago about reposting it now. Like, it's crazy. So you just got to let go of all those kind of, it just come from an ego place that you think that it's a high and mighty and everybody's watching nobody cares.
It is. It's difficult, you know, and I think what's the phrase? Like, everyone's the hero in their own story. It's that type of thing. Everyone's their own. It's like main character. I think it's a syndrome. It's got something to do with it, but like, it's that, you know. I think it's just getting stuff out there for sure. It helps.
Yeah, 100%. Like, honest people like don't care as much. It's not very often I'll be scrolling through things. It's never really where I'm looking and be like, judge somebody on what they're doing, because it just is what it is, isn't it? You just got to get things out. If it's the same as, like, if you want to go in any direction, if you want to build on social media, you've got to start posting things on social media. So it's like the only thing that you can do. It's like wanting to become a long distance runner and then never actually running.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you're not going to do it then, are you? And it's like, you got to do the thing that's necessary to be able to build in that field. And
ultimately, I just think it's, if you want to do it, you know. Don't get me wrong, like, I'm sure there's other stuff going on behind the scenes that's, you know, the excuses that make you want to stop doing it. But if you want to do it. Otherwise, don't. That's it. You got 2 options: do it or don't. Don't, you know, it doesn't matter about the other stuff, in my mind.
Man, no, 1,000,000%. The kind of like philosophy that I'm running through with at the minute is that at some point I'm going to be dead. I'm going to be in a box, and at my funeral there'll be people that I've known all of my life, and they won't be able to make it because they've got too much on. They're on the other side of the world, and they'll be like, "Are you going to the funeral?" And they'll be like, "I really want to, but I've got this business meeting on the Saturday, and it's the Friday, and it's a little bit later." Or there'll be people there, and they'll be like, I've got to pick the kids up. Like, do you know what I mean? And I'm just laid there lifeless in a box, and there'll be people either not turning up, worried about the spread, wondering if the sandwiches are going to be good, and that's not from like a victory, but that's just that's the reality of what's going to happen, and then things are going to move on. So if people are not going to be able to, that I've spent my life with, aren't going to be able to attend my funeral, why am I bothered about anything in the regard? As long as I'm living on my moral stand ground and I'm not doing anything to harm anybody, do anything that you want, because honestly, it really doesn't matter. We're all going to end up in a box at the end of the day. And people are so, like you're saying, so invested intrinsically of what they're going on, the main character energy, that's all that they'll be bothered about anyway. Like, nothing else kind of stems out apart from what's happening inside. Like, you can walk into a supermarket sometimes and you'll be thinking like, oh, I don't know, wear something stupid and walk into a supermarket. When was the last time you walked around the supermarket and remembered what anybody looked like? Never. Do you know what I mean? You go in, you get your stuff and you go out. And then, so you can't worry about anything that's happening around. You just have to do the things that you want to do. Otherwise, you're going to regret it. And ultimately, the day that you're laid on that bed and you know that it's time, you'll be like, fuck, I wish I just did the things that I wanted to do.
No, it's true, mate. It's true. I think the podcast for me, like this is a perfect example of that, to be honest with you. I feel like I post about it a fair bit, but I had somebody who likes all my shit other than the podcast stuff and said, I didn't realise you had a podcast. I'm like, I've been doing it a year, mate. I got 35 episodes. And I'm like, and that was a really good reflection for me where I was like, fucking hell, you know what? Maybe people aren't just sat at home with notifications turned on to my profile. You know, it's a really nice bit of like, you know what? Like, it is just social media and people are doing other stuff and they do have other things going on. But yeah, it was a mad one, actually. And being totally honest about it, I was a little bit like, fucking wow. You know, this is my place in the world. I was shook.
Yeah.
But that's the reality.
Yeah. But that's everyone's. And then you think, so if you think you've done 35 episodes, and then you've also, how many promotional posts go out about that? Say on average, maybe 3. So that's 100 posts about you doing a podcast and every episode that have gone over all this length of time. And then somebody who you can see a lot on social media still doesn't see it. Like, so that next time that you're thinking, I've posted about it already.
You know, and they say, like, I was looking at a podcast like strategy and all that type of thing, and they said for every 1 hour you spend of making podcast, you know, content, you want to spend 5 hours putting stuff out to promote it. I'm like, wow, that's something I'm definitely not doing, you know, in that sense. I probably put out, I don't know, 30 minutes of effort per hour of podcast. So that probably needs to be improved.
Yeah, well, that's the marketing strategies of mega movies, like blockbuster movies, isn't it? That they create the movie, but then majority of their budget goes on advertisement, where they're just trying to hound it on everything. So, like, their main thing is the promotion of the actual film, as opposed to actually the production. And then when you're watching these things, you're watching the promotion, or the main stars will do like the media rounds. Same as fighting, they'll do if you watch like a fighter's pre-fight interviews, and they have to go through all the different journalists, so they go BT Sport, they go Sky Sports, they go Ariel Hawani, like majority of them are just saying the same things. And that's why you'll see fighters all the time, they'll be like, I'm so bored of just answering the same questions. But they'll do 20 interviews saying the same thing, but people are still watching and engaging with all of them because there's different streams of audiences. And films kind of do the same thing, that there'll be advertisements here, the actors will go on to, I don't know, Jimmy Kimmel or something, you know, like and it'll be the same questions, the same answers, and it's just a script. It's just an advertisement script, sales pitch. Essentially, when you boil it all down, it's the same thing. So when it comes to that, and you want to advertise this, you kind of just have to go through the same thing. You're just gonna take the snippets and post them all on different
I'm gonna
avenues.
do it. I'm gonna figure out a way of doing that, and I think if I want it to grow, it's something I'm gonna have to keep doing. I think I kind of slipped out of the habit a little bit of doing the podcast over the last month. Yeah, I'm gonna say month or two, because I was doing it weekly, and you know, just because other things were going on and that type of thing, which is ultimately an excuse. I need to get back into it. I need to get back into a big routine. And I think I'm definitely somebody that benefits from the routine. I think I need to let go of the idea of perfection, and just be like, you know what, get something out there. And it doesn't mean you're going to, you know, put out shit for sure. Like the stuff is still going to be valuable, but I can't just be like, right, when I first did the podcast, I was like, I've got to clear the full day. I've got it in my calendar. I've got, that 1 hour chat with one person. I'm going to book out a full Wednesday. But I needed it, mate. Mentally, I was broken afterwards. It was mad.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you see things like that with if somebody's got a doctor's appointment at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they don't do anything in the morning, and then like 2 comes, and then it's like the whole day just evolves around that appointment, and it can be the same thing with like these. But if you revert it back to if your main goal is productivity and getting things moving, then it just has to be like you turn up to a job, the same thing, and they say, cool, you've got 10 podcasts to do today, 9 till 5, they're half an hour's.
Mm-hmm.
You just graft through it. It's like that, and that's ultimately what it is that and like the same way you say about if you make a note in your phone about the different ideas. So for your example, you'll be looking at shoulder strength or jaw strength, neck strength, and you're writing these ideas out. You can do the same thing with the actual process of it. So getting the productivity of the thing that you actually want to go through. So now it's not just, I've got the ideas. It's, okay, this is the way that I'm going to implement it. So it could be that I've got to get 5 videos out today. And now I've got the ideas. And then we can link them all together. Mm-hmm. And now things just get moving. As opposed to, I look through my list, I've got jaw strength. And that's what I get done today. And now I've spent 4 hours and I've done one post. Whereas whatever your direction is what the direction is. So if you said you've got 5 different carousel posts to do on jaw strength, now you've got to do a video format, you've got to do a carousel, you've got to do a blog for your website, and you're just going to go bang, bang, and it's all going to like correlate and run through the same thing. And once you get that momentum going, it's going to be a lot easier. But yeah, you can do it with the actual process of it as well as just the answers, I reckon.
Yeah, and I think that in itself is a good idea. When you think, we was on about long form, okay, do a long form thing on a specific topic right there. You're then going to have short form. You're then going to have crops. You can then bloody transcribe it. So this app that we're on at the moment, Riverside, I just looked at, because I haven't been on it in a few weeks, they now have a transcription mode. So as we're going now, afterwards, it's going to spit out everything we've said. You've got a weird accent. You don't know if you're Australian or Irish or from Grimsby, so who knows what it's going to say. But I can crop that. 100%. That's it. Straight onto a bloody picture, sorted. And that's mad. I'm buzzing about that. I'm looking forward to giving it a go.
Yeah, man. Smash it. But the technology that you have available now, there's anything that we're saying as we can't do is genuinely just becoming an excuse of not using our time properly at this stage in life. Like whether it's learning how to use AI or a chat GPT or the transcripts or the video editing, like everything can be done at such a process speed. Like even if you're just doing it yourself, the only thing that's lying in the middle between you and creating it is you ultimately. When at this stage, maybe like 10 years ago, you had to study like a software, and now it's.
I'm in a mentorship group at the moment, to do with business and pushing things forward. And the guy, Dan, who runs it, has basically banned people from saying, "Oh, I was busy." It's like, what, you don't think everyone else in the world's busy? You don't think everyone's thinking that they've got too much on? So he just banned it, and I'm like, that is sick. I love it because I'm busy, you're busy, but I bet everyone who's got shit going on. It's a priorities thing, isn't it? It's what do you value, and it's hard.
A million.
Here we are. That's life. It goes back to the thing before: do it or don't. Say it. Don't kind of do it. Do it or don't.
No, a 1,000,000%. And like you said, like I subscribe to that motion of just like what you're saying, just banning it. It's like, because even though I can be in a position and I'll say I'm really busy and I've got a full day in that, like, that you can still keep going. Like, there's people, that run marathons every single day. Ultra marathon runners. Some of them get ready for 200-mile competitions. So imagine running a marathon every single day. And I'm sat there going, I got one social media post done. Do you know what I mean? A mate is hammering 26 miles every single day, just going through it. And I can't get enough done and say that I've not got enough. A million percent. There's all the time in the world to be able to it's the process thing again and the productivity of it that maybe I've just sat around and wasted too much time. Like if you had a gun to your head, you would do the things that you know are necessary, and that's the ultimate of it. And you've got to think like if you was in that position, then what would you actually do? And most of the time, it's not what you're doing. So do the things that you would do if you was in that position. Like the thing is, most of us know. Like if you say you want to grow social media, what do you need to do? You need to post more, make engaging content, put value out. Okay,
that's true.
Like it's the same way where someone will be like, "Oh, I need to lose weight," and it's like, okay, what would you do if your dog needed to lose weight? You'd walk it more and you'd feed it less.
Sorted. There you go.
Okay. So people know the answer. You just create hurdles in it just to, I don't know, the psychology of why.
Well, it's that it's got a name. I'm gonna butcher this, but it's that self-limiting behavior. It's that thing of like, if you know you're really struggling with a particular topic in school, math, science, whatever, and you're thinking, fuck, I'm really nervous that I'm going to do well here. You start basically not trying on purpose, but making a joke. Oh, I haven't revised in 2 weeks. And it's like a way of you kind of dealing with that fact. And it might be slightly different, but I think that's a really important thing. And you see it with athletes as well. You know, they're nervous about kind of giving it their all, because once you've given it your all, you either win or you lose. If you don't give it your all, you've always got that little bit of buffer room where you can kind of be like, oh, you know, it's because I didn't try as hard. Okay, that's probably easier to tolerate than I tried my hardest and I failed for some people.
Yeah, 100%. Well, you've created a safety net. John Jones, that was like his main thing that he used to say, was he would come out and he did an interview where he said a week before the fight, he'd go off and do the things that John Jones does. And he said that was the reason that if anything ever went wrong, I'd be like, okay, well, I shouldn't have been doing those things last week. That's the reason that I lost. Because you start to identify, you can't identify yourself with the losses, but that's what we all do. That if you begin a business and it flops, you will see yourself as a failure, not that idea is just not worked, or maybe it's not been in the right position or had the right thought process behind it. You will just see it as, I lost it, I failed, and you attract it all to I, and it becomes super internal. That now it's you have failed, and then you've got to deal with all that kind of things. Whereas it should just be floating by. That if you go into a competition and it don't go your way, you go, cool, on to the next. But it's just there's so much heavy weight to it, and it's only you that creates that weight. Like nobody else is actually.
How are you dealing with that type of thing then? Because I put fighting down as one of the most kind of pure things you can do. You know, in that sense, it's just competition versus competition. It's very how you. Well, I guess has it changed since your career of how you deal with competition and losses? Like when you first started versus now. Is it like a process that you're going through of like intense disappointment, but happy with where you're at? What's give us your thoughts on that.
It's definitely grown, changed, flipped throughout the whole process. Like how long? Like 15 years, 14, 15 years. If I had the same process that I did then, I'd be worried. Like if I had the same psychology to fight in as my 14-year-old self, then it would be time to change. But no, it's kind of when I first started fighting, I'd be so caught up in thinking that everything I would identify with the result 100%. If I was to lose a fight, I would definitely think that everybody knew. Like I'd walk down the street and you just hang your head down, like as if anybody. Then it goes back to that ego thing, like as if anybody cares. Two, nobody watched you because you're fighting in a skate arena in Sheffield with 100 people there. Nobody else knows or cares. But where I went to was understanding the passion and the love for it and comfort. So I got to a point where I was having the glory fight, Huge stage, big promotion, fighting a big opponent. And I remember for the whole time just keeping my uh, psychological trigger to just being like, this is where I'm at home. This is where I'm happy. This is where I'm comfy. So by the time I made that walk, now I make the walk and that's when I feel like I'm at home. And I'm like, finally. As opposed to like the pressure coming through and crushing you, it's the opposite where now I'm like, I brace out with it and I'm like, some motherfucker just let me off my chain. Now we're at home, let's go. But it's even switched from then to the point where now I revert back to the thing where, okay, this doesn't really matter to anybody else apart from me. I'm going to be dead at some point. So I'm going to do the things that I love. I'm going to do the things that I enjoy. And that's the reason that I'm here. I'm still going to be in the same thing that this is my home. This is what I love. This is my passion. Let's go. But also,
do you think
whatever? Do you know what I mean? So now I can relax because I'm not worried about
if somebody,
like, anything else.
I guess it's that if you said to yourself back then of like, look, I've been where you are, you know what, this is the mindset I want you to try and, you know, adopt of like, okay, you're home, or do it for love, do it for the passion. Don't necessarily worry about the outcome. Are you listening, or is it just something that you've got to discover along the way through losses, through sitting and reflecting on, you know, your mindset and your attitude?
It's a million percent a process. I think the same reason that kids don't listen to adults through a thing that they've got the wealth of knowledge, they've been through the experiences, but they're just like, I know what I'm doing. Do you know what I mean? Just through, I don't know what it is, but they just think they know. I think you have to go through the hardship, the failures, and you have to create your own construct of understanding what it actually is. Like, I could say to the next fighter all the things that I've gone through, but until you personally feel it and truly embody it and believe it, then it's just external kind of noise. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, and you get the same thing, you know, like the I told you so's, like, you don't know that thing and you feel it until someone, like, you've been through the process, you've understood whatever it is, and someone goes, well, I told you, and you'd be like, yeah, I fucking know. But now I get it. And they're like, yeah, cool, at least now you understand. You know, and you have to go through that process of a mill to actually understand it. Otherwise, it's just noise. I think too much guiding kind of disservices people in a way, if that makes sense. Like, I think if you don't let anybody go through the trials, then they will never truly get the feeling of the things that you're trying to say. Like anything, there has to be pain for growth. There has to be resistance for growth. But I can't just let somebody else do. They have to experience it. You can't say to somebody, "Oh, you should be doing this amount of sets for this amount of period of time," and then just be like, "Yeah," and then not do it. They're going to come back in and they're going to be in exactly the same position, and you'd be like, "But I told you," and they'll just be like, "Oh yeah, but I didn't do it." You know, they have to go through the resistance. They have to go through the pain. They have to go through the discipline of being there each time to actually feel it. And then once they get the progression, they're going to be like, fucking yeah, this guy knows what he's on about, and I'm getting stronger. And now he understands properly, okay, if I do these things, this is the result.
It's you know? the phrase that jumps to mind is when you're a parent. I'm not a parent. You're not a parent yet, but like, you can't just take your son and carry your son or daughter to the top of Mount Everest, because you then rob them of the opportunity of having to graft to get to that point.
Yeah.
Same thing. You know, I look at when people speak to me around like injury prevention and S&C and that type of thing, it's like there is definitely in my mind a correlation around people that really buy into the, you know, injury prevention term is a little bit kind of wishy-washy, but buy into the robustness work because they've been injured. They know what it's like. They know that they are not invincible. You know, people that have never had an injury are the worst person for like trying to actually take care of their bodies, in my mind. You know, I think you're lucky if you've had an injury pretty early on, because I think it shapes you then going forward, providing it's not huge and it's not chronic or anything like that. But yeah, actually going through some shit is such an important part of
But,
the growth
yeah.
process for sure. You know, you get those calluses, you get those scars, it toughens you up. That's part
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah. And I think that's everything. I don't think that's like injury. I think that's just life in general. Like, for you to be able to go through some shit, you take the stairs instead of the escalator, then you get more gratitude and appreciation for things. If you come from not a financially set background and you get your first bit of money that you can go out and get your own things for, and you buy your first jacket out of your own money, you're like, I fucking love this jacket. Like, you never take it off. Whereas if you just grow up and you're just bought into money and things just come, the jacket just gets thrown within 5 minutes. And that's the same thing with absolutely everything. I think you have to go through that little bit of, you can't avoid discomfort, and otherwise along the road you're going to face something a lot more severe than just like kind of mild
For
discomfort.
sure, it's part of it. I was thinking, as I was driving to the gym today, I was thinking through the super compensation curve. The ADAPT logo in itself is the super compensation curve. You train, you dip into a little bit of a valley, and then you come out a little bit stronger. And I was thinking through one of the guys we've got in the HQ group at the moment, and they're going through a really rough time in terms of training, just very fatigued. We're putting a lot into it, and it's like, well, that's a good thing. That's a trophy, mate. Like, you're doing something that actually warrants you needing to adapt and get stronger. Good, don't get me wrong. The thoughts that you're going to be going through of like, fuck, I'm weak at the moment. I don't feel strong. I don't feel fast. Well, yeah, you're going to have to get past that, but it is temporary. But yeah, it's not to wear fatigue as a badge of honor. That's definitely not what I'm getting at. But I do think the times of stress, the times of hardship, providing you do all the things off the back of that, if it's psychologically, let's reflect, let's learn. If it's physically, we need to recover, sleep, eat protein, whatever that is, and then you're going to grow stronger from it. But they were just some traffic thoughts as I was going.
How do you feel? Because I feel like from your perspective, you've gone more from an athlete at the start of the base, where the journey started, into the coach and a business owner now. So it's easy to be, as an athlete, you have to train, perform, recover, recycle. And it's pretty linear. Like, there's obviously hardships along the way, but it's linear. How do you feel that process goes with, one, being on the outside and being the coach, and two, being a business owner? Because there isn't, you've got a business, you work 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening, sleep, eat, repeat, because then you're not going to get anything done. So where do you feel like that process is, and what's the balance difference in that, especially when everything comes down to now it's all on your shoulders, figure it out?
I personally find the business owner side of things is so much easier in my mind to tolerate than working for the university, all the universities that I've worked for in the past, because I see it as almost a direct, it's not exact, but if I work harder and I get this shit done, it gets done. You go to a university or you go to a bigger organization, you can work really hard, you can do all these things, and now you've got red tape. You've now got to wait for so-and-so to email approve that and email approve that. Before you know it, that, task that was super, super urgent and was, a fire that needed to be put out is no longer an issue for anybody else, but you've stressed yourself out getting it done. So the business owner side, I love it, mate, to be honest with you. Like, I really enjoy the process, genuinely do believe that it is the best job in the world. And I feel like I've really kind of found that thing. I get to work with athletes all the time. I get to be selective over the type of athletes that I work with. And, just saying it brutal, like, I don't work with dickheads. I don't want to work with dickheads because they're just an absolute mood hoover. They just sap your energy. Don't get me wrong, you don't always know they're a dickhead until they're fully in the room, and then you have to kind of deal with it. But yeah, the business owner side, you've got to, I guess adapt is a fucking perfect word, mate. Like, when I sit down and I think about the name Adapt, I love it. Like, I still think fucking, I'm buzzing about that one. But you've just got to be willing to fail, I think. is the thing. Like you can't just you can't be too serious about it, because not everything you do is gonna be a win. You are gonna fail. I think that answers a business one. I'm trying to think. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just thinking it from more of, and then it's the turn point of, you say like you go into fatigue as an athlete, and you're saying that's not like the badge of honor for things, but sometimes you're gonna have to put some shifts in when you're running your own thing, because you don't have the comfort of, if I turn up to my 9 to 5, what I get in return is my paycheck, and you maybe put up with some bullshit from the system and the HR, and you have to come in and you have to say hello to Pete, even though he's a prick.
Fuck Pete.
You just have to get on with it, and that's the reward for carrying on doing those things. That is, you're going to get a paycheck. Whereas when you come through the other side, you don't get that. So if you don't put the work in, you don't get to eat at the end of the month. But obviously, it comes with a lot. It's a high risk, high reward position, but you can't just go 9 to 5, come home. You can in some regards, but if you want to grow to a position where, if you're like super ambitious, then that's probably not the time you're going to be working on. You're going to be working on more of a 24/7, 365, like, just because of your love and passion for it. So do you feel like when you hit fatigue in that?
It's hard, mate. Like, I definitely think I've had periods since starting Adapt where I'm like, oh, I'm fucking tired. I'm tired, but you do need to get shit done. It's like, because it is just me, there's no, Jordan hasn't sent my program out, even though he said he would. I can't have that. Like, that's just not an option. That's my fault for fucking up my time. Like, it's
personal accountability, 365 days.
It is just an ownership thing. Like, it's on me, but I really like that. I think that's such an important thing for making sure I get stuff done. So do it in the morning, do it at night. Doesn't matter. Find a way to get it done. But again, coming back to my initial point, where I am at the moment is I don't feel like I'm really having to. I'm working hard. Don't get me wrong. I'm really working hard. But working hard doing something that you really like doing feels so much different from working hard doing shit that you hate doing. So I feel like I can clock up more volume. I can clock up more hours, because it's fun shit. If this wasn't a job and I wasn't getting paid for it, this is what I'd want to do. That's it. That's the reality of it. So for me, it's I just think I'm lucky, to be honest with you. And that's not in a braggy way, but genuinely it is. I do enjoy this.
Nah, I don't even know if I subscribe to the notion of it being a bragging thing. Like, you've put yourself in that position through years of understanding different routes, different jobs, figuring the shit out, figuring out how to run the business, personal contact with clients and stuff like this. It's not like 10 years of work and now you're saying, oh, I enjoy it, so you need to apologise that you enjoy your work and you can get the volume in. You've earned that fucking badge. That's your medal. But it does that what you're saying about the passion of it. That it goes to the saying that the person that loves walking is going to walk further than the person trying to walk to the destination. And if you can find the thing that you're loving doing, you're going to get a lot further than anything. But the same thing that you can't get disheartened if you don't know what it is right now, because it's going to take process of doing things that you don't enjoy to know what you actually enjoy. How are you going to figure out what you like if you don't know what you don't like? So you're going to work in some jobs where you're like,
and that's huge. That is everything. It's the same thing. It comes back to the same kind of learning process. Again, I don't like losing. I've had shit jobs in the past. I've had working in a chippy when I was like, I don't know, what was that, probably 15, 16. And nothing wrong with working in the chippy, but this was a shit chippy as well. It wasn't good, and it didn't tick any boxes for me other than a bit of money at the time, but it ticked that box, and that was a priority for me. But yeah, I think knowing what bad is allows you to chase what you don't like doing, so you can do the good stuff. Same with technique. Okay, it's exactly the same thing. I'm not. There's periods of like coaching and stuff where I'll be hot on technique, and you're like, right, we need to fix that. We can't afford any mistakes. But if you're in like a learning period, let them have a bad rep. because then you can correct that bad rep and give them a good rep. Now they know what a bad rep feels like, so now they can self-correct that and do good reps more often. If you rob somebody of the opportunity, same thing. You never give them the opportunity to do better things. But yeah, what do you reckon around that then? So you're in the same boat, really, like the business owner side. How would you answer your question? Is that change your thought process?
So I think originally I never really see it as an avenue. Like I just don't know, for some reason I just didn't see it as the thing that you could do. Whether that's the surroundings that I was brought up in or the kind of things that you're conditioned to, that I just was assuming that, I don't know, I have to work for something. The idea of me when I was 15, 16 years old owning a business just wasn't like, just seemed, I don't know, just didn't seem like a thing that was actually going on until you break it down and you realize how reachable it is. And everybody that's doing this thing are just people. The same way that I can humanize fighting, that champions are just people and they bleed and breathe the same way I do. So why can't I beat them? And that's the mentality that now I've realized, oh, this can go here too. And he just breathes and bleeds and has to sleep the same I do. So why can I not build a business and an empire the same way that he does, and the same revenue incomes? Like there is no difference. The only difference is a skill gap. So I've got to spend the time understanding the skill difference and the things that I need to increase to get to that position. And it's exactly the same as sports. Like if you're looking to become a boxing champion, there's no difference between you and the champion at the time. There's just a skill difference. So now you've got to invest your time, you've got to knuckle down, get on with your shit until you build up enough skill, dedication, sacrifice, and then when you're here, you can compete with this. But there's no different in the human makeup. You're still bleed and breathe the same. But I think it is a thing where it's the same. I love competing sports, and I love just going into a cave of just zoning into one thing and being like, this is what I'm hitting. Fuck everything else. And now I've kind of like picked that up and put it into a business as well. So now, like I've in the last year, I found like such a passion for the process of developing it and the strategies and the theory of everything around it, that I've kind of just picked that up and put it here as well. So for me, like I love the process of it, and I'm not afraid to own because I feel like at some points, if you kind of step out of the curve and you go, I want to achieve these things, and I'm not interested in partying, I'm not interested in going out, I'm not interested in watching stuff on TV, I'm just doing this. And people will be like, man, you need to take a weekend off, you need to relax, why don't you have a drink? And before, a few years ago, I'd be like, yeah, maybe I do need to relax. But I ain't trying to get what everyone else has got, so I'm not going to do what everyone else is doing. So I'm in a position now where when people say these things, I'm just like, nah, I'm here. And I'm like, I'll subscribe to being the weirdo who's just 24/7 in his computer, 24/7 in the gym, because at some period, they're going to be like, how did you get there? And you'll be like, well, you're not calling me weirdo now. Like, the difference is with people that are super successful, like if you say Michael Jordan or something, there would have been a point in time where people would have been telling him to slow down. There'd have been a point in time where people are saying he needs to loosen up a bit. But now he's got the evidence of the work. People don't say that anymore. So the only thing that's missing in that is the evidence that he is the best at what he does. So now people, instead of going, oh, he needs to slow down, he's a little bit weird, now they glorify him for the work that he's done, and you need to be on that same energy. So I'm not interested in the thing of, oh, slow down and
I think you're just self-regulated,
you know
mate.
I find a passion and just run with it. I think
that's it.
Yeah, and I think people work on different volumes and energies with that. Like somebody's volume, like I say about the marathon runners, there's people that run a marathon every single day, and there's some people that spend 6 months getting ready for a marathon. Both people are outside their comfort zones and doing different things, which is amazing. But some people are just going to be going at a different frequency. they might not be able to do that in a business sense. And matey who's getting 6 months ready for the physical might be a kingpin in business. But it don't matter. It's just like if you can run at an energy an energy volume and you can maintain that, and then I think people just work on different energies and it's fine. Not everybody has to subscribe to the same
And
motion.
we're probably in that sense opposites from a like simplistically time of day. You like getting up early. You like, you know what? I get up early and I've got more time in the day, and I'm beating Webb. I'm beating Jord who's asleep. I love staying in bed.
Yeah.
I love it. I love feeling rested. And that's where we're different, but both doing good stuff for a result. I probably go, I don't know what time you finish working. Sometimes you probably don't until you get straight into bed. But I quite like I'll get up at, if I had my say, 8 a.m., maybe 9 p.m. Not 9 p.m., 9 a.m. Do a bit of work for a few hours, go train, come back, chill with the missus for a bit. Then when she goes to bed early because she's up at like 4 a.m., I'll do a few more hours work. You know, I'll go from 7 till 9. And I like that. It splits up the day really nicely for me. And I put up something on, I think it's Twitter the other day. I like having like a 12 or a 13-hour day, and then the next day doing 3 hours, and then doing a 7, then maybe just doing a 1. Like I like the variation day to day. I'm not too keen on the 9 to 5 because when I did have a 9 to 5, I might work for 2 hours, then I'd hit a hump for 4 hours, but I've still got to stay there. Then I might get something done at the end. Everyone's different, innit? That's all it is.
Yeah. Well, what you're looking at when you're saying you've got to work from 9 to 5, the process that you're aiming for is working from 9 o'clock till 5 o'clock. So all you're doing is filling that time. It's the same thing as saying you've got to get 50 pieces of content done today. Now, I can work 9 till 9, but all my focus is, it's like when you work in a position where you're on a clock like that, you'll be like, oh, hour and 45 left. It's not, what can I get done in an hour and 45 if I supercharge that time? It's, I've got this long left. Or I've been working, I've done 12 hours today. Have you really done 12 hours, or you just you've just been around for 12 hours? Do you know what I mean? So there'll be days where you're saying that you only do 3, but that 3 is, you may catch that flow and you may be at it and you may get so much done and be like, bang, I've smashed that. And you've got so much more done than some days when you work 12 hours, because now you're thinking, oh, I'm doing a 12-hour day, but half of it is fluff. Like, not saying that for you personally, but sometimes when people come through and they say, I've done 12 hours each day of this and that, and I'm like, okay, but if you could film yourself and see yourself for that whole 12 hours, let's see how much is actually productive. And I'm talking that about from posture, my own point of view. Do you know what I mean? Like, there'll be days where... 100%.
Mate, real quick, I need to run for a toilet. I need a piss.
Yeah.
Okay, brief break in the podcast with Ben whilst I run to the toilet. So I do not get enough credit for how well I hold my bladder during an episode like this. I want more credit. So if you are not on the Adapt newsletter email list, you need to get on there as soon as possible. Okay, so I'll put the link in the show notes below. Click on that, give us your email, and then what you'll receive in return is going to be heaps and heaps of hints, tips, programming philosophy, exercise breakdown, everything that you would need to, be a really high performer in whatever space you are, whether you're an athlete or just an average gym goer that's trying to make sure that they move well, perform well, and just enjoy training in the long run. All right. So without further ado, let's get back into the episode. Speak soon. Oh, tell you what, mate, there is no better feeling.
Hydration is definitely the one thing that I've lacked on since I was fucking 10 years old. And it's still the thing. I need to get on it more. And I think it's going to have such a difference in everyday life.
Probably.
It's a crazy thing that I can commit to non-processed food. I can commit to making sure everything is like super natural, and I'm like cutting everything out, trying to have all organic food. no tap water if I'm drinking it, and all this, but then I'm still just not even drinking enough water.
What's the thing?
That's definitely
Like,
my.
why? If you had a glass of water in front of you, you're drinking it. Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah, maybe.
I guess it's habit. I guess the only, which is insane. I assume it is it's a habitual thing now where I can just get by without it, and I think it's okay because I've not realised what it's like on the other side of actually being hydrated all the time. You know, like I understand now how I feel following the protocols. I feel now of better food, cutting out processed food, and like all my things of looking after my sleep and fasting, and I feel like on such a different frequency, but I've not done that with hydration, so I'm just like,
hey, and that's that. I can't
I
remember
just have
what
a cup of
the.
tea.
It's got a mad name, like the beta region paradox, and it's basically boil the frog. But because you're always, what's the thing? I'm going to butcher this. It's an analogy they use for like domestic violence and stuff. If you get into a relationship and straight away your significant other, whatever, is really aggressive, okay, you're like, well, no, this is a big change. See you later. I'm off. But if they're nice, then gradually they get a little bit worse, a little bit worse, a little bit. You're more likely to stick around with it. One of the best things that could probably happen to you from a hydration standpoint to make you start respecting it is you probably just need to do a few faintings, mate. You know, and that would probably be a really positive thing. It'd be good.
A million percent.
Right, so go on.
Yeah, go on.
One of my athletes at the moment, she's hit her. Well, I'll tell you what, it's a longer story. So for about 2 months, we've been struggling with a little bit of an ankle issue brought about from just faulty shoes, essentially, when she was playing the sport. So she's had a little bit of an ankle issue, a little bit of tendinopathy, tendonitis type of thing. Okay, so really bad, but it's never been bad enough for her to actually stop playing the sport and actually start respecting it. She'll complain about it all the time, for sure, you know, and it hurts her enough. But she's never doing anything about it. Well, she went to a trampoline park, okay, and she's done her ankle in, proper done her ankle in. Different injury, but same ankle. And I was speaking to her about it the other day and saying, this could be the best thing that's ever happened to you. You know, you don't know, because now you've got no choice but to actually rest it, rehab it appropriately, take time off your feet. This could be an absolute game changer. It stops this from being a chronic career-ending injury. And it could just be one of those things that you look back on and think, shit, that was a good thing.
A million percent, man. The bad things that come when there's the cliche sayings of there's always like a silver lining or all that kind of stuff. There's a reason that them sayings stick around for years because they've got so much truth in them. Like for me, my diet was garbage. Like 4 years ago, garbage. Like my go-to meal was cheeseburgers, cheesecakes, and because I trained so much, I knew I could get away with eating anything. I would eat like them 4 packs of short
Tesco
bread biscuits, with chocolate chip from thingies, and then see it off with cup of tea and the sugar dusted. Bro, I was on all that all the time and didn't care about any nutritional value. Even when it come down to like maintaining my weight, it was just what calories can I get in? A McDonald's cheeseburger only has 500. But you think about what's the garbage that's in that, like from a performance standpoint, not even just athletic, just everyday life, garbage. But it took me almost dying, getting a chronic stomach disease, ending up in hospital for a month, and being in a terrible position to the point where I could not even stand up anymore, to miss everything that I was doing. So now I'm like regimented with everything, and that's why I'm so polar opposite to where I was. But I would have never have made that leap of changing all of those things so drastically if it wasn't for that hardship. So I don't even look at that now and be like, oh, I wish that I'm glad that happened. I'm so glad that happened because now I'm in a position that is elevated from that because this required drastic action. And if you don't get like a hard position that requires drastic action, like you say, you sit in the pot. The frog sits in the pot.
Boils to death.
gets worse, but you just adapt to your surroundings. Yeah, 100%. So you need something to come in and go snap, and now you miss everything. And go shit. I need to change some things up. So but then it goes back to the same thing, that the hardships and the things that come. It's hard to get excited when something bad goes out.
It's the Alan Watts, the Chinese farmer. We spoke about that, didn't we? Like, I'm gonna butcher the story, but essentially, was it his cattle run free, and all of his neighbours come over to his house and like, you must be gutted. I'm really sorry about that. Chinese farmer says, maybe, yeah. Next day, the cattle come back, but they bring an extra 3 cattle with them. Neighbours come round. You must be really happy. Jeez. Maybe. And it just keeps going. And it's like, you never know what the repercussions of that thing is going to be. And I think there's something really nice about it. But, it's just mad. I think you could go off on one for bloody years about this. But this is the Steve Jobs thing as well. What was his thing around he dropped out of a class, then started taking a calligraphy class. In the calligraphy class, where he started making fonts and doing things differently, was the actual differentiating factor between the Macintosh, so the first ever Mac, and the PCs at the time. So having fonts was the thing that made it stand out. So him failing led to Apple being here. And it's like, wow.
Man, I think so much, I don't know if things happen for a reason or not, but I feel like the thing that matters is how you react to things, as opposed to that kind of notion, So if you're in a position where your cattle go and you stress and you run around and it's game over, now you identify with everything just being a catastrophe, where maybe that position can happen and you have to go, okay, what can I do now? And you start growing crops, and the crop could be the thing that elevates you to the next level. So when these crazy things happen, I feel like now, for me anyway, I'm in a position where something happens and I go, okay, where do I need to go now? So
you were your car last week,
and I go,
you've had a few run-ins with a car, haven't you? Just every other day you say to me, fucking parked on a glass bottle by accident, tyres gone.
Yeah, so I had a hire car, and it was being picked up at 10 a.m. and I went and filled it up, drove it back. This was at 10 to 10, and the driver was outside. And as I pulled in, just drove over a glass bottle, and the whole tire popped. And what am I going to do in that situation? Realistically, how is that going to change anything? Yeah, there's nothing that I can do. So what will be, and the only thing that I have control over is how you react to things. And it's the same when you get kicked out of a class, or you get this. Maybe that's just not the path for you, and you've got to figure something else out. So embrace it. Don't identify with too much, because they can get stripped away. If I identified as a fighter solely when I was ill, there was a position where a doctor told me that he sat down to me when I was in a hospital bed, and he was like, is this something that you have to do for the rest of your life, or can you let it go? And I was like, this is something that I have to do, man. But there was a position there where someone could have taken it away from me, where he's like, no, I'm going to book you in for a surgery, and that surgery would have led to me never being able to compete in professional combat again. So if I would have identified that, good luck with dealing with that psychological crisis, because now your identity has been taken away. Whereas things will happen and you have to. So now, when I had that conversation, I was blessed enough to be able to carry on with the things that I'm able to do physically, because I made those lifestyle changes because of that drastic action, that process. But at the same time, I've gone, cool, what do I need to do if that does get taken away? And now I've found a passion for business. And now I'm in a position where it's not even just doing this out of necessity. This is, I've found something that I enjoy just as much as I enjoy fighting, which I never thought I would have. And that's all the things, like the business creation and all the things that we go over about. And I have more conversations regarding this than I do fighting now. I'm still just as involved in fighting, and I'm in the gym just as much as I ever have been. but naturally the conversations that I'm having are regarding this, because that's the thing that now is just urging out of me. And I don't think if I ever had that, I would be in this position. So again, another drastic thing created action. You take that action, and you just have to. You have to adapt. You have to be able to adapt, man.
That's all it is.
Thing.
Talk to us about your training, mate. What's going on here?
Yeah,
so, where's training at for you? What you doing? How's things?
Training is, wicked. So, I went from a position of, I was originally living in Indonesia for a little bit. That was my goal. And as I said, I got forced back to England through health conditions. And as we've been saying, the notion of things happen and you adapt to them, that has led me back in England, and I'm now at a gym where I'm buzzing to be at in Birmingham, and I've moved over there. So training now is, I'm training with some of the best guys in the world every single day, and they're teaching lessons like UFC champions, UFC top ranked people, and even the people that aren't ranked in that are just an elite level that are able to compete at that kind of standard every single day. Just, it puts you in a position where you have to elevate your game, sink or swim. So you put yourself into a pool of sharks, and you're either going to get ate or you're going to be able to become a shark yourself. And they're the environments that I just thrive in, where I'm like, okay, backs against the wall, what are we going to do? And putting myself in that position has been wicked. So now, full focus, foot down to the floor on the MMA journey, which I'm just dying to get my first fight done so people know that I'm actually doing it. Because even though I've been doing it for 4 years or something now, I've not been able to showcase properly what I've been doing. So people just still see me as a Thai boxer. If people will still message me on Instagram and be like, "Oh, would you ever do MMA?" I'm like, fuck, I've been doing it every day for 4 years. So I'm dying to get that going. Do you know, it's like you going, you ever thought about doing a podcast?
How dare you?
Maybe. Do you know what I mean? It's the same thing. Ego, let your ego down. You have to let people know. And the way that I'm going to let people know is I have to go and make a statement and kind of take over that world. But training's unreal. That I feel fitter, stronger.
What did it look like?
It's wicked, man.
What did it look like from like a weekly standpoint? Were you then in terms of class timetables and that type of thing?
So all of pro practice happens in the morning. So you pretty much schedule everything from the morning, and then the evening is kind of to your brain a little bit, but there's still things you can do. So Monday morning we have like hard wrestling practice, 2 hours of just after it, again with elite people, and then Tuesday you've got hard jiu-jitsu rounds. Wednesday you have your hard sparring rounds. Thursday back to jiu-jitsu. Saturday you have your MMA sparring. So all of like your red line stuff is first thing in the morning. And then I look to do more skill-based things in the evening, whether I look to refine into, say, jiu-jitsu class and kind of drill through things, whether I go into S&C and follow your programs into keeping my body strong, robust, or striking or things like that. But it's kind of like red line first thing in the morning, and then you go from there on and kind of push on through that, whether you do something in the afternoon or later in the evening. But the main structure kind of bases off that top weekly.
Is that different from what you've done in the past?
But mine's always been the opposite way around. Mine's always been skill set, S&C. I guess what you could call them are like additional sessions, maybe. Not additional, because they're still part of the process.
It's like accessory.
Secondary sessions. Accessory, that's the word I'm looking for. They've always been in the morning because all the big classes have always been in the evening. So now it's like a morning thing, which I guess that's why my routine's adapted so much to me being up earlier and trying to get my head around all that, because your red line is at 11 a.m. But it's not, like I say, that's not that early, but it's a lot earlier than 7 p.m. So a little adjusting through to that. But no, I think that's better to get up and get the hard stuff like going, like so I wake up in the morning, have my coffee, do my work, do the things that I need to do, kind of trying to get into a routine of that. So that's a little bit more structured and a little bit more planned. Do all my normal things, try and get some sunlight and, like try and do those things. And then start amping myself up. So like a little bit before class, I watch something that maybe is going to start stirring the pot a little bit, or I've got some music that's on and then I'm getting changed and I'm a little bit more, and I kind of like start building that energy up, and then I can just hit training hard. And then after that, that's like your hard bit's done. So now I can like revert back into work where maybe it requires me to be a little bit more creative, and then I go into drilling again, a little bit more creative and just figuring processes out. And so I kind of enjoy the process. That for me, I enjoy that kind of time schedule.
Do you reckon, so I was just thinking through scheduling stuff there, like most fights usually take, well, in the UK, it's going to take part, 7 p.m. onwards, because most of the time you're going to be on a main card, you're going to be quite late on in that. So you're talking 7, 8, 9, 10, who knows?
Yeah.
Do you put much weight around that? So if you're used to training at 9, 10 a.m. and then you've got to kind of switch, is that something you'd focus on, or is it more a case of, crack on? What's your thoughts?
Nah, that's definitely something I'll focus on. I think that your body clock will play a massive part in it, and it will just, if it naturally starts to slow down,
circadian rhythm.
Circadian rhythm. Is that the one? Circadian rhythm. I think naturally, the same way that when somebody's in a job and they're always up at 5 a.m. and then they're like on the weekend they're saying, I wish I could just lay in by car because I'm just awake because that's what my body clock's on. Well, this is going to be the same when you go to sleep. If you go to sleep, I'm pretty much like 10, 11 o'clock every night in bed ready to sleep. So if I've done that for say 7 months and then you go into a fight and it's 10 o'clock, how is your body not going to be coming down? So for that, as the time comes closer towards competition date, I would look to implement later sessions, even if it's not like a physical go. It would be 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, put some music on, switch, wake up, shadow box, envision, like start going through that visual process. Imagine yourself walking out, feel the feelings, like essentially just putting yourself in that situation as much as you can. So when it's there, there's comfort there. And that's a big thing for me, saying where I used to be able to just feel the moment and get used to the nerves, is because I've done it every day. Every day I've sat, I've seen myself in the arena, I've made the walk, I've had the music, I've won the fight. So then when I end up walking it just feels like deja vu that I'm just going through it again. And now I'm about to play the script. But 100%, I'll go and get elevate the heart rate, get the vision going. Because why would you leave something to chance, which is such a big factor?
Yeah.
Like, you're about to get locked into a cage and fight in front of however many people in this insane pressure environment, and you need to be alert and sharp. Why would I want to be in a state of my body being like, when we're going to bed? Do you know
perfect sense.
Yeah.
For sure. And I think it's...
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it has to be like a... Sorry. I don't think it necessarily has to be like a... don't know, like an insane, intense session. I just think just something so your body... Because your body doesn't know the difference... Well, relatively, your body doesn't know the difference between competing in a full fight and just elevating the heart rate, kind of, you know what I mean, in
For
external
sure, mate.
things.
I think it's a good idea to do so, definitely. And it's similar with like jet lag and stuff. So if you're traveling around different countries, got different time zones, some of the ways that they approach that is they'll make you basically stay awake for a full night so you can, change that a little bit. You'll start changing the meals that you have. So if you get on a plane at, I don't know, 9 p.m. UK time, they will start feeding you breakfast at that time because they know that you're going to start landing at a different time zone. So it's little things of trying to trick your body digestively into that type of thing as well, but also light exposure. I think it was I'm going to get this wrong, but I think it was a Formula One. Was it Formula One? I think it's Formula One, but basically they had a full floor of the hotel. Obviously they've got mad money, but they just took over it. So they completely like renovated it, made sure they had blinds everywhere to cut out all the external light, just because they knew that it was going to mess with people's sleep patterns. Because it was something along the lines of, right, we're just flying into Monaco, we're racing, then we're getting back out, we're going back to another race, which is a different time zone. So it's their way of just like trying to manipulate those things as much as possible for the longevity. I thought it was sports science, mate, is absolutely mad. When you think about it, just being able to explain all those things.
Yeah, but I also think there's a point when you talk about business strategy or social media strategy, and you say, think of all the things that you could do to increase the position you want to be in and write them down. People are going to have a pretty good understanding of it. And if you was to say to an athlete in whatever realm they're in, you say, spend an hour and write down every single thing you can think of which might benefit your performance, they're going to get a pretty solid list going. And you would come into the same things of make sure you're performing at the correct times and all of this. So it will just be a case of looking at that list and doing the things. Discipline comes into form so much more than just, okay, I've got 2 training sessions to do today. That's for a professional athlete, not for anything else. If this is your job, that's not discipline.
Well, that's the fun stuff.
I don't think. I think that's the thing that we enjoy. Yeah. So the discipline comes into everything else, making sure your sleep's correct. If you are going to be fighting at 11 o'clock at night, start figuring that cycle out at a certain point of time and stuff. But I think all those little bits do make a big difference. And I think if you take care of the small things, the big things will take care of themselves. And like you say, when you get on a plane and if you're landing in the morning, they start to feed you breakfast, like that kind of shows the relevance of all these kind of things, even from a digestive point. Imagine waking up at 7 o'clock in the morning and someone comes to you with a big fat roast.
No.
You'll be like, I don't want a roast. I can't deal with a roast at 7 in the morning. Like you're naturally programmed to be more breakfast cuisine, lighter, smaller, and then it builds through. So that even that shows you the process of your day, and you're naturally going to assume things with that process. So like if you had a full English breakfast at 10 o'clock at night, people would just think it's weird. But why? You're just consuming food at a certain time. It's because they're the things you identify with times of the day. So it's going to play a factor. If it can be in a social, if you was to sit and eat, come down to a breakfast in a hotel, and like I say, have a lamb roast, people are going to look at you like you're pretty gone, So if it plays such an important thing in a social environment, it's definitely going to play in your psychological. That's
such an interesting thing as well, isn't it? The whole like social construct. Well, a 7-day week, okay, Monday to Sunday, that in itself is a social construct. Like I was explaining it to one of our guys the other day around how your program doesn't have to work off of that. The 7 days doesn't mean anything, at all. Adaptations don't run on a 7-day clock, so we can play with those things. It works from a lifestyle and logistics standpoint to be like, okay, well, we know you finish work on a Monday, you're going to go straight to the gym. If you do it on a Sunday when you've got the kids, you might not be able to do it. So there's certain benefits, but like biologically, there's so many things that are going on. I don't know if you read it or listened to it. It's the Why We Sleep book by, I forgot his name, I think it's Matt Walker. You sent me his TED Talk and he's sick. Yeah. He was such a good speaker, TED like Talk, not one, like insane. And There we go. But in his book, he speaks about birds, and he was saying around how something like they function with something like 20% of their brain on. So when they're flying through the air and they've got to do like an 18-hour journey or something, they have a bird at the front and a bird at the back that is responsible for driving, essentially, and everyone's just flapping
Yeah.
away but actually sleeping. And it's like, what? That's mad. It's something like I might have butchered that.
Did you get? Yeah, there's a bit where did you see about how they sleep
Can't remember.
if they're in a nest? So if two say two birds are in a nest and they're looking after the eggs or something. It might not be because they're looking after the eggs, but regardless, this is the situation. They will sleep side by side, and 80% of their left side brain will be looking this way out to their left hand side, and that kind of stratosphere. And the matey on the right hand side will use 80% of his right. So they've got 100% of vision, but then 20%, like the other side of their brain, will go to sleep. So they can get to a point where half of their brain is awake and half is asleep, but they're still managing to cover. And what they do is they then switch sides after a certain amount of time. So then the other side of the brain can get. You would think maybe one just stays awake and one goes to sleep, but they don't. They
co-manage it. Yeah.
Co-stay awake, and yeah. So they can. They say that there's a way that humans can do it, but it's not totally optimum. But obviously, but yeah, they can keep one eye open and be alert, and let the other side of the brain kind of sleep, and yeah, they switch through on the other side. But like the theories and stuff down into sleep is so crazy, and that Matt Walker bringing everything to light. It's insane how little kind of goes into it, because if you was to starve somebody, you can last for a long time without food. Relatively, you can go 3 days without water. You know, there's a lot of things. Socially, you can be locked away for a lot longer than you can sleep. If you start to deprive people of sleep, like it's the first thing that starts playing with the brain and the psyche. Like it's the quickest thing that starts messing you up. Yet it's the thing that we kind of pay least attention to. Like we'll put all this money into recovery and ice baths and saunas and Theraguns, and then sleep on a shit mattress, like, or not give yourself a routine to allow the bed to fall asleep, or not block out the light, and you know, like. But it's the biggest performance factor that there can be, but yet people will spend thousands on an ice bath, and which, don't get me wrong, whole therapy in that I'm a big fan of, and I understand that, but I feel like that's the starting point, and get that right, and then look to
it's definitely
add on. 100%. I don't know if you think the same thing from.
It's such a big rock, mate, and I think just thinking back to the adapt side, like we have. For anybody that isn't a part of the Adapt Athletes to listen to it, we have certain education modules that we go through. So we've got nutrition, we've got recovery, we've got training strategy, and then more recently we've put out around optimizing sleep, and you know, a little bit of a presentation on, you know, some of the benefits and some of the studies on sleep for athletes and injuries and performance, all that stuff. And then at the end, we get you to take, you can find it yourself. It's the Sleep Hygiene Index. Take the Sleep Hygiene Index quiz. It'll take you literally probably a minute, and then it identifies where you're kind of losing points to enhance your sleep quality. And then boom, you've got you know what you need to do, which is another part of it. You know, I could tell you right away what my Sleep Hygiene Index score is going to tell me. Put your phone down, lad. Then you need to start. You've got that battle of being like, right, you know what you need to do. Now do it. Stop being a dickhead about it and just crack on.
Now it's the real discipline. Now it's the real discipline. It's not going in and doing bench press, which feels good, and your dopamine's gone, and it's, oh, can you put your phone down?
It's hard. It's that thing. We all have our own little vices, don't we? And I think society as well, like the group chats, mate, like the boys in the group chats, they light up from like 9 p.m. onwards. That's when the memes come out. Society wise, there's got to be something around the fact that people are wanting to communicate more at that time. I don't know. I'm not sure. They just sat around not doing it.
Well, I guess if it comes, I don't. This is me just talking off the top of my head, but there's no distractions. There's no responsibility at 9 p.m. There's no, I should be doing work. I should be doing this. Like on a society standpoint, that's your time where you can guilt-free switch off. Like the day's done. So, but now we're wired awake because we're illuminated with lights 24/7, and we're not allowing our body to switch off. So your brain is still wiring, but now there's nothing else for you to do. So you're going to revert into this device that can feed back the same energy that you're still going at a social output, like as if it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Like your body still thinks you're wide awake because you've got that light going on 24/7. So you're going to need to engage the same way, and that's going to give you that back. So naturally, you're going to be drawn to it because that's the kind of thing you're searching for, and it gives you so much quick dopamine and things like that. That's the process.
Addiction.
It just you're looking for it, it gives it, looking for it, it gives it, but you end up just 1,000,000% addiction. And that's not me from a point of saying like everyone's addicted. I'm addicted to my phone. It's stuff that I need to get better at, 100%. But you can see it, and I guess that's why it then goes back into it because, like I say, you're running at that energy, go into the group chat, people ping back, and now you've got this thing, and you can just stay awake till.
It's mad.
But again, but then in the morning you go and dive into an ice bath for recovery, but you've had 4 hours sleep and you're trying to make yourself feel better and more recovery for your training session. It's like, all right,
it's mad. I think there's one thing knowing it, the other thing is implementing it. And that's the hard thing.
Yeah, and we're in a time where there is so much information that's just flying around, whether it's short format, long format, YouTube videos, that you can learn anything at a touch of a hat. And there's so much out there, but it's the case of implementation at this point, where even to a point where you have to stop taking information in and actually apply the things that are going on. Because I feel like the same way that you can kind of get dopamine from some things. I feel like you can get it from watching motivational and educational videos, but then not actually implement it. And you kind of like feel like you're doing a lot, but you're not actually. Because if you sit and listen through a full podcast and you think, oh, I'm being real productive, it's like, because now what do you do? Have you like bullet pointed all the things that you need to take away from that and reiterated them and then applied them? Or have you just kind of just gone through that to make yourself feel good, and now I feel better and I feel like I'm productive, but really you're in exactly the same position, which is a bit of a hard pill, but that's the reality of it. And it's like I've done 12 hours today. It's like, all right, well, what have you done?
That going back to that podcast piece, for anybody that's listening that, you know, is a driver and a podcaster, if you're a Google Maps user, click the little microphone when you've got your podcast on. When you hear something cool, click the little microphone. It'll say, hello, Google's voice, whatever. Google, write notes. Ben just said that sleeping is a really high quality activity. Boom, your note has been saved. And then you've got it saved, and then you can just look at it at the end of a day, you know, when you're not driving, and actually digest that information. For me, that's been a life changer, because I listen to a lot of podcasts when I'm driving, and I'm like, yeah, I'll remember that. That's gold. And I'm like, obviously I never do, and I never implement anything from it. But that's been such a good thing for me.
Yeah, taking them notes is huge. Like, there's so many times where you think, oh, I remember that.
That's my slogan.
There's so much going on. Whether you've got
I need that on my gravestone, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's the same thing. Like when it goes back to what colour pants you got on? Don't know, can't remember. And that's something so like you literally did not that long ago, and you have on attached to your body, and you can't remember. But yet you think you're going to remember 1 hour 42 of a podcast, of a 3-hour podcast, where Andrew Huberman said this about performance, and it's this little snippet. Now you're going to listen to another hour of all this other information, but you're trying to cling on to it.
Yeah.
Just take the note. Same thing if you get an idea, and it's like, that's a really good idea. I'm going to get onto that. You ain't going to get onto it if it's going to seep away into darkness. And so make a note of it, and implement them notes. That's like the main thing, because you can just take information in all day, but what are you actually taking?
For sure.
In? That's like the big thing.
Absolutely, mate.
Yeah, and them notes are massive. That don't mean like podcasts and books are a negative thing. I just think there's a point of
diminishing returns.
How productive you can kind of be with them,
engaging with it.
Yeah.
Sick. Right then, mate. I think that's a really nice point to wrap up.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's a good point to wrap up on. I'm going to figure out how to edit this 100%. One. I'm wondering whether to what we're on. We're on 140. Well, we chatted shit before we got into it, didn't we? So we'll have a little look. Yeah, thank you for your time, mate. That was absolutely sick. Always good chats.
Cheers, brother. Yeah, good chat. I've got no idea how you're going to edit it, but
we'll figure that out after. All right, cheers, mate.
Cheers, fam.